This is podcast Happy at Work. My name is Tatiana Kovar, and today we will meet with one of the very interesting and best experts in retaining, hiring talents. This is Kara Yarnot. Hi, Kara.
Hi, Tatiana. Nice to be with you.
Thanks a lot for your participation in our podcast. I remember our first meeting. It was very inspiring for me. We discuss your book, your future book, and we discuss the very interesting and professional topic, which we want to discuss today. But before we are started, could you please share some your professional background with our audience? I think that after this presentation, all people from my audience could follow you on LinkedIn. I know what you are open for the new connections, for new friends from different countries, and I hope that they follow you. So please, could you tell a little bit about your professional way, maybe some personal issues if you want to share?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you so much. So, I've been around the talent space for just about 3 decades now, most of that in talent acquisition. I started by accidentally becoming a recruiter, like many of us do. My first job out of college was with Intel in Northern California. I was a supply line planner, and they invited me back to my alma mater to be the recent college grad representative. And when I got there to the career fair with the recruiters, it was like, wait a minute. This is a job. How do I get this as a job to get to be a recruiter, helping, connect people with their first career? And I fell in love with it. So I found a way to turn that into my career almost 30 years ago, and I never really looked back. So I've worked for big brands globally that people might know, like Intel and Boeing, and brands that people might not know at all. I worked in the construction space. Ran recruiting for a large home builder here in the US. I've worked in IT consulting and technology space as well. And then about 13 years ago, I kind of made the shift to the consulting and vendor side and have been advising companies on their talent strategies for that many years, a little over a dozen years now, and have been helping, big companies and small companies with talent strategies, whether it be overall strategy, their process optimization, technology selection, EVP and brand work. So that's been my passion, and I've gotten to work with a number of different types of organizations for that amount of time. And that did lead me to my book, The Talent Trifecta, that is coming out in September, but we'll have a chance to talk about that as well. In my free time, I'm a big traveler. So if I haven't been to your country yet, I know you and I talked about yours. I would love to do so. I only have two continents left to visit, which are Australia and Antarctica. And I spend a lot of my time with my rescue dogs, and I'm a big wine person. So when you connect with me on LinkedIn, tell me your favorite wine or send me a picture of your pet. I would love to see those things.
Cara, thanks a lot for your presentation, and I could start from the topic. I really like the topic of our today episode, why retention starts from attraction. And
Yes.
substance, and my question for you, why?
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 Yes, I have found so often when I'm working with executives in my consulting practice that their favorite place to start is, oh my goodness, why is my talent walking out the door? And, it's an easy place to start because we can quantify it. We can say it costs, Gallup tells us, actually, Gallup has done a lot of studies around this, that depending on the industry and the type of talent, it can cost anywhere between 50% of an employee's salary and 200% of their salary to replace them. That can be a lot of money. So it's really easy for organizations and for executives to quantify that and to focus on that, because if we can stop the turnover, we can save an organization a lot of money. That goes straight to the bottom line. That's something people can pay it a lot of attention to. But often, by the time somebody has decided to leave, it is too late to try to save them. So we start looking at, interventions that can happen a little bit sooner, and some retention programs to keep people in place. And there are some really great ideas there, whether it's mentoring and career development. But we have to start and think even further back in the process because your relationship as an organization starts from the very first time your organization has a touch point with the potential employee, which is a candidate. And that's the first time they potentially learn about you as an employer, which is in your talent attraction process. And what messages are you sending to them about who you are as an employer and what is it like to work there? And that's the first time you touch them through attraction, which might be how you are presenting yourself in your employment ads and your branding ads, what they might come across as they read about you on your Glassdoor or Indeed reviews or whatever you review sites are available wherever you are around the world. So what they start to think about you as an employer forms that basic opinion of what you're like. And so the organization is making a promise to that potential employee from the very first time they touch them. And is that really what it's like to work there? So that's where it truly does start because the impressions start to form about what is it like to be an employer there or an employee there. And then when they become that employee, are you as an organization truly delivering on that? So retention really starts all the way back at what your talent attraction team, your talent acquisition team is doing all the way through that selection process and how the team is interviewing you, what that hiring manager and the interview team is telling them about the experience of working there. And it is all of that being delivered on as an actual employee. If we wait till they're, starting to think about leaving to give them the true experience of what their life could be like, it is way too late.
Kara, I have one question for you. It's questions about balance between two sides. Usually we talk about honesty when we talk about a company, but company also try to attract talents to look
Yes.
better.
Yes.
It's like in young women usually want to attract a man.
Yes.
She tried to look better. What is the right balance for the company between two sides? To be attractive on one side and from other side to be honest
Yes.
because promise which you uh, give it's really important. What could you advise?
I think that is an excellent question. And, I look at it as let's be authentic about what the experience is really like. I had the opportunity to consult on attraction strategies for two companies in the exact same industry that, in pharmaceuticals. So one was Pfizer, and, they're big and they're global and everybody knows them. And interestingly enough, in the pharmaceutical space, they move, their environment is very quick and very fast paced. And they move quickly, they reorganize a lot, and moving quickly and failing quickly in pharmaceuticals is good because we want to know that something doesn't work so we don't spend a lot of time, and that's the same in all pharmaceutical space, but their environment is such that we're going to move quickly, we're going to change a lot. If you got to find your way, you got to make your own career path, and if you do, you're going to do great there. And then another organization I worked with, similar space, and they actually both have big operations outside of Boston, is called Millipore Sigma. And same space, recruiting very similar people, much more deliberate, much more structured, a lot more process oriented in everything that they do. You put two resumes in front of them of great scientists, they're both going to see these are great scientists. But someone that is attracted to fast-paced, own it, do it your own way, make your own career path is not going to be happy in Millipore Sigma. And someone that wants to have a deliberate pace, not have the organization change on them a whole lot, they're not going to be happy at Pfizer. So telling that story authentically and truthfully externally early saves everybody time because the right candidates are going to self-select into the environment that is best fit for them. And they're not going to get, 3, 6 weeks into a process and say, oh, this isn't the right place for me. And they're equally talented, they're equally smart, they probably have the same, credentials behind them. But if both organizations are truthful and authentic about what it's like to work there, the right people get into their funnel, and you can spend less time as a recruiter, less time as a hiring manager trying to figure out who's really the best fit here. So I like to say the right candidates, not the best candidates, because we get away from who has this degree and who worked at the biggest brand names. We really get to who's going to do the best and thrive the best in our world. So being truthful about what does it take to be successful in our environment is really what's most important. We all have things. No place is perfect to work at, but sharing what makes your environment the most unique is what's most important.
Uh, Kara, I met with ex-CEO of Marvel, Peter Cuneo, in one of the previous episodes of podcast, and we discussed a lot about mistakes. But mistakes is very, very important, the reflection about mistakes. And my next
Yes.
question about this, what are the biggest mistakes usually companies make when they try to attract the best talents?
So, one of the biggest mistakes companies make is sounding like everybody else. So, one of the things I encourage my clients to do before I start working with them is, ask them to give me list of who they consider their top talent competitors. And it's not always their business competitors because sometimes they're after the same talent. Everybody's often after the same talent as Google or whoever it is because they're after tech talent. I just ask them to give me their top competitors. And then I go out and I go to those career sites and I just make a list of the messages that are on all the career sites of the people that they are competing against.
Mhm.
I don't put the names of the companies, and I send it back to them. And I say, tell me if you can tell which company is which. And more often than not, if they give me 10 names, 7 of them will sound wildly similar on their career sites. And I will say, we now have an opportunity to stand out and to sound different. Because if you were a candidate and I took the brand names off and said, where do you want to work? They would say, oh, well, these places all sound the same. How am I supposed to know the difference? Using my Pfizer and Millipore Sigma example, how would I know which one I'm going to be the best fit at? So this is why, doing the homework on what is your value proposition and who are you in the marketplace is so important. You need to stand out to candidates, not sound like everybody else. If you're competing with massive brands, which most people are, for talent, but you're not a massive brand. Most employers around the world are mid to small size companies, but they're competing with names that everybody knows. And if you sound like all of them, but you're not one of them, your ability to attract talent becomes very, very challenging. So the big mistake most companies make is they don't think it's important enough to invest in sounding different. But when you do, you attract attention because 7 of the 10 big guys sound like each other. And they don't necessarily need to sound different because they have a brand name attached to them. But you need to sound different and authentic because it starts to form that connection between who you are when you're attracting people and who you are when you're trying to retain them, because we want them to stay. We want your story to be the same all the way through, all the bumps and bruises included. If you're an organization that can't offer something specific because of the industry you're in, the growth stage that you're in, the funding stage that you're in, whatever it is, let's be truthful up front. So you don't bring people in and they're going, you never told me that you're not able to do X right now, so I need to leave. Well, tell them that up front. So those people who need X don't come in the front door and walk out the back door in a year, and you continually have to pay 50% of their salary to 200% of their salary to replace them, because that's not effective either. But not sounding like everybody else and sounding like yourself is what's going to make you stand out in that attraction stage up front.
Mhm. My next question is about candidate experience, uh, because it's very hot topic now, and a lot of people, a lot of companies now understand, but it's not enough just to communicate something to the candidate, but it's also important to be consistency of the whole process of attracting employees. What could you recommend companies about managing employee candidate experience?
Yes. So the absolute first thing, because I'm going to be the last one to beat up on recruiters right now, because recruiters, I was one of you for a very long time, and I am here to support you at all moments. And I know they're all getting inundated with AI generated applications, and it's the one of my current clients calls it the avalanche right now that everybody's experiencing. But you'll take a pause, look at how your applicant tracking system is configured, make sure you have ways in there to, at a minimum, respond to applicants that are not being considered, that you even just don't even have time to get to at least communicate that we're getting so overwhelmed, we don't even have time to look at everything right now. And we apologize for that, but here's the situation. So just take a pause, ask the experts at your company that manage the configurations to make sure you're at a minimum doing this. I feel for candidates who are in the current job market that are looking to make sure that is the case. The next thing is it's also about, that clear messaging. And once you decide, who you are and what your messaging and what your authentic messaging is, take a pause, look at all the communications you do to candidates and make sure your messaging is clear. You don't want to sound like everybody else. You don't want the generic, thank you for your application. You put your personality into it, put your brand messaging into it. If again, this is an effort. The $10,000 you might spend even to hire an external communications professional or brand professional to help you to go through that will come back to you in spades from the candidate community. Because if you are a consumer brand, you are having a massive impact on your actual business by treating candidates poorly. But even if you are a business to business brand, all of these people could be potential business partners, customers, something along those lines. So, just remembering the humanity that we need to have when we're dealing with people is really important. But go through every stage of your selection process and make sure you have communications in place and automation in place to help you. I am a big believer that we're humans hiring humans and that humans need to exist throughout this process. AI can help us get some of the busy work
Mhm.
done, can help surface things here. But I'm also a massive believer that if someone got to the hiring manager stage of your process and you are not moving forward with them, they deserve a communication from you. Ideally, you're picking up the phone and calling them. They may not take
Mhm.
your call, but you've made an attempt and that we should get back with them. But keeping that message and that authentic experience is really important because well, I've been through this enough times
Mhm.
that we know the market's going to change and we're going to need candidates more than they need us. And, people remember how they were treated. And it doesn't just impact our ability as recruiters to hire people, it will impact our business's ability to meet their strategic objectives. And, part of this falls on our company's leaders. It's part of the reason I wrote my book. It's actually geared towards company leaders. It's not geared towards you recruiters. I know you know all of the things that are in my book. It's geared towards our company executives to help them understand why we need to do what we do and convince them that we need to be better resourced and better funded and draw all these connections so they understand. So encourage them to read it. But those are the pieces that really come together so that we, as recruiters, have more time to do what we're really good at, which is build candidate relationships for the long run.
Absolutely agree about humans hiring humans, and when it told about aligning your message with your process, I think it's very important. I remember one of a case from my practice when a company have very friendly culture, a very friendly employer brand. But the first time when I looked at their job offer, it was so formal. I asked, why is it so formal? Because it's not you, it's not your tone of voice. And they said,
Right.
oh, just because in the past they took a template from other company and they just use it, don't think about it. So
Yes.
for me, it's also a candidate experience. It's also about all the details, all the touch points, and totally agree with.
You are spot on. The bane of my existence have been job ads and job descriptions for decades. Like, why did we take what compensation wrote to level the job and suddenly just put it out in the world? Like, it should sound like who you are as an organization. And there are some organizations that are great at this, but most have some challenges. And yeah, so that's one of the first things your potential candidates see about you is how you're presenting the job. And it should feel the same. But back to attraction is connected to retention. What is this job really about? If you have fun at work, your job description, your job ad should be fun. I mean, it seems obvious, but it's one of those things that just falls by the wayside. And that is one of the areas where AI can help us
Mhm.
improve it with some tone and some fun. You still need to look at it and make sure it's right and feels right, but it can definitely help us get better at that.
My questions for you, it's about leaders and their roles in the recruitment process.
Yes.
Uh, Sometimes in companies, I think that all the recruitment is responsibility of recruiters.
Yes.
But it's, in reality, the leaders play a very important role. What could you recommend? How to engage leaders in this process and how to prepare them for attracting the best talents?
Yes, this is so critical. And like I said, it's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because I often found that my projects and engagements with organizations that were the most successful were those where the leaders, the executives were fully engaged and they wanted to learn and they wanted to understand how the talent strategy had a direct impact on the business strategy and results. And those were the ones that were the most impactful on the business. And so I started looking for, well, what's the book that I can send in advance of my engagement or leave behind for these executives to have their next level of leader read? And there was no book. So I was like, I guess I need to write it. And so that's how it landed. So there's a lot of advice in the book, but one of the things, particularly, from what can the HR teams, what can the recruiting teams do? So the first thing I recommend, from the leadership standpoint is invite yourself or strongly encourage to be invited to those business strategy meetings. Say, I'd like, if you're not already there, just say, hey, I'd like to come and observe. I'd like to understand, what's going on, what business decisions that you're making, because that helps me determine best how I need to staff my team, how I need to advise my team on what they should be learning to best support you. So really kind of flip it to, I would like to be there so I can see in advance how I need to be organizing the team. And then, kind of going down to the next layer, how you have the talent team organized, you aligning them with the leaders that they support to say if they're hearing all of the critical things that are going on in the business, they can start to ask the right questions when they're screening candidates about who's best aligned. Some of the best things I've ever done were the shadow days or the ride-alongs, and they depend on the industry that you're in. When I was in the construction industry, we went out in the field at least one day every year around the construction site, or it was new home sales, so we went with the sales folks in the model homes. But even when I worked at Boeing, I would take my team. I ran the college and diversity team. We would go and we toured, the Apache helicopter manufacturing facility or the satellites. And then we got a small focus group of the folks that worked in those facilities. because no one was going to let me climb on a helicopter. But, the opportunity to do that, giving the team, because while I hired when I worked in IT, I hired developers, I couldn't code anything, but I would sit and spend the day understanding how their day was structured, because, if I'm hiring a recruiter, that's great. I know what that day is like, but giving the team the opportunity to learn about that, so they have a greater understanding. But then when it comes to an individual role, most recruiters do this, but you've got to hold the hiring leader as a part of the partnership. At the end of the day, if the position doesn't go filled, they're the one that suffers. The recruiter suffers because they end up with more openings, but it's their team, it's that organization that has a missing role. So you doing that strategy meeting, kickoff meeting, whatever you want to call it, where you're truly walking through, why is this position open? How does it impact the business? What are the agreements you and I, hiring leader, are going to make? What's the turnaround time for when I send you candidates? What's the interview process? How many people are involved? What days are we going to interview? Giving them the opportunity. I was a little, as a recruiting leader, I was a little bit of a stickler to say, hey, if you, hiring leader, don't get back to my recruiter with responses in this amount of time, I'm assuming the position's not important to you and they're putting it on hold because they have other things to work on. When you give them pain, they start to say, okay, it's my responsibility. But I have found that when recruiters, can talk business talk with them, they don't feel like they're the order taker, they're the true partner, and then it becomes a give and take. And you don't take, as a recruiter, you don't take the answer of this candidate's not a fit. You push back and say why. What was wrong? What were specifics? It's not just no, it's why, because you're never going to learn. If you think you're sending good candidates and they just keep saying no, and you say okay, and then you just go try to find somebody different, but you don't know what you're looking for, you just end up spiraling. So you have to keep continuing to push back. And then that's how you learn as a recruiter. But you also have to put those rules in place, and because hiring managers also have 40 other things going on. So forming that partnership, but making that effort to learn the business as a leader, inserting yourself into those meetings, but explaining why and how it's going to benefit the business makes all the difference in the world.
Mhm. Uh, Kara, my next question for you. Usually, I also work not only with the biggest well-known companies, but also from startups, ex-startups, with fast-growing
Yes.
companies, which now maybe don't have so strong employer brand. But times to times, they said we have very ambitious strategy. Our
Yes.
business is growing very fast. So we need to attract the A players, the
Yes.
best talents. But
Yes.
it's tough for this type of companies. But what
Yes.
could you recommend to
Yes.
the companies with great ambitions, how to become the attractive employer?
Yes. So I get this one a lot because particularly in this economy, we seem to have a lot of people, startups and growing, and great way to go. So the first thing I think is honing in on that clear message. Who are you and how are you different? I think that is very important. And then doing the research or understanding, and particularly as you're growing, so you've attracted people, you have people in your organization, you can do just quick internal research with your current employees, you what's important to you? Why did you come? So this is great EVP research. Why are you here? Why do you stay? What are the messages that got you here in the first place? Use them as your focus groups. You can do this very quickly. Try out some of the messaging, understand, learn from them. Where do they spend their time? Online, offline, you build a very quick persona of who they are, and then you take whatever limited budget you have to do some very targeted advertising to where it is there. I'll give you a quick example. I worked with an organization that built laser technology for both the military and commercial use. It went like on military jets, and then they had other commercial use. Small and growing company. They were maybe 150 employees. And we started doing the internal research. Bizarrely enough, like 80% of their laser engineers did lots of woodworking and metalworking, and that was what they liked to do with their spare time. And as I was sitting with them, they were all using in their spare time. They all went onto YouTube and researched woodworking and watched woodworking and metalworking channels. So we're like, here's the key messaging that we have. And we started advertising their company opportunities on YouTube in front of videos related to woodworking and metalworking because we knew people like
Mhm.
them were doing these things. In a million years, on my own, I would have never come up with
Mhm.
laser engineers like to woodwork without talking to the humans doing these things. So small company people, and they were only hiring here I'm in DC, in the DC metro area. And so no one, knew who they were. And big growth to them was 25 hires in a year.
Mhm.
It's very specialized. And they were willing to relocate people. And it's been years, but I think it was like Florida. There was a school in Florida that had a bunch so we're like, let's target this. But I wouldn't have known this if they had just gone to some big ad agency and said, we need to run
Mhm.
ads. Who knows what they would have done? But those are the kinds of things that you can do is you're small, your people, you like who you want to hire, work for you. So let's start talking to them and understand these things. You can try out your messaging on them, A/B test stuff internally. You don't have to go big. You don't have to spend $150,000 with an ad agency to do these things. It's relatively quick. I think we put it all together in 6 weeks.
I totally agree. Usually, when we talk about marketing, we talk about guerrilla marketing. So I think and also
Yes,
need a guerrilla HR marketing for
yes,
this
very
type of
guerrilla.
company. It's a great example and a great recommendations. All the recommendations you should give. And I want to ask you my last questions because the time is coming so quickly. It was
Oh
so
my gosh,
wonderful
yes.
conversation. Yes. It's time is going so quickly every time in our podcast. It's my traditional question to all my guests. What three main tips could you give to companies who want to build the attraction strategy which helps them to retain their employees? What are three main points?
So three main points here on building your attraction strategy that's set for retention is it's got to be based on your organization's values. So those hold true throughout your entire organization. So take a step back, think about the values, and that's like the core. Your attraction strategy has to communicate the values of your organization, number one. Number two is you have to keep something going with attraction, no matter what's going on with your recruiting needs. Sometimes they're really high, sometimes they come down low. You have to keep the message going even at a super low level, even if your hiring has come down or, even if you're in a freeze, you still need to be doing some messaging because it's really hard, particularly if you're not a big brand name, to come back from no messaging for a period of time and completely out of your target market's mind for a long period of time because you are competing in most cases
Mm.
against known brand names. So always have some budget. And then number three, trust your recruiters to do their jobs. Recruiters are really, really good at talking to candidates, converting the business strategy into talent strategies. So bring them into the business strategy, and you will be really, really impressed with what they're able to do to convert that to candidates, even though they might not be nurses or scientists or engineers themselves. But when you bring all of that together, that will tie to bringing the right talent in the door in the first place. They're easier to retain because they know who you are, they know your authentic message. You've been talking to them for a long time. So when they get there, they know who you are. And if what you told them was true up front, because it's based on your values, they're going to stay longer than those who bought into some generic message that wasn't really who you were in the first place. So those are my three.
Kara, thanks a lot. I have so many questions for
Oh,
discussion, and thanks for this brilliant dialogue. It was so inspiring for me, and I hope to meet you maybe again
yes,
after your book will be published. And I wish you good luck with your book. Absolutely
thank
sure
you.
that it will be successful. And I hope a lot of companies will buy it, not just for recruiters, but mostly for leaders, as you said, and
Yes,
recommend. I think it's the
yes,
best. I think it's very great life hack to buy a book, get the leaders, and then come and discuss
yes,
how to improve the attraction strategy. So
great.
thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for sharing your expertise, your wonderful expertise with my audience.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks. This is podcast. Happy at work. Stay connected.